Welcome back to another artist series. Today we have a composer, turntablist, musician, artist, and a PhD student in composition and computer technology at the University of Virginia, whose work moves between jazz, hip hop, and experimental sound. Please help me welcome Ra. Hi, Ra.
How you doing, Carlia?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course, and thanks for having me.
Of course. So I want you to take us back to the beginning. How did you first get started with music and what drew you to it?
So, honestly, it started with my grandmother's piano. Visiting her for all the different holidays and getting to play the piano freely um, as early as age 2, and taking lessons as early as 5. That's kind of where my musical journey started. And my grandmother, in general, would take us to the orchestra in Philadelphia, sound all around, and that was the program for kids. But that was sort of my exposure to music growing up before actually taking on an instrument. So that's the beginning.
Wow, what an amazing grandma to make sure you had those experiences.
Yes, shout out to her.
Yes, shout out to grandma, W grandma.
Mama. Mama.
Mama, okay, got to get the right
Yes,
name.
right, right.
Okay, so what was that moment where music kind of went from a hobby to something that you realized this could be a career?
I feel like there's like a few moments, but there is one culminating moment where I think everything clicked. And I'll start there. In high school, I was looking at becoming like a chemical engineer because I had, of course, in my ear like music wouldn't be a realistic career. And I applied to some colleges as a chemical engineer or as chemical engineer major and had gotten in um, at University of Delaware. That's where I'm originally from, Delaware, but grew up between Delaware and Philly. Um, but I initially, I mean, this kind of happens again in college, but the first time was with chemical engineering. I kind of had like a epiphany and revelation when I was taking AP chemistry and I realized how hard it was. Like first week, I was struggling because like I couldn't keep up with the summer work, and it was rough. We had a new teacher and everything, so I kind of switched my schedule around in high school to drop AP chemistry and pick up music theory, like another level of music theory, and that kind of was like the later epiphany that I had around that. Because I also went to like Berkeley College of Music sophomore year of high school, and that was like a really good like exposure to like what a music college could be. And even then I was just like, this is so expensive and ridiculous. Like I feel like I wouldn't ever be out of debt if I went to Berkeley. So that was kind of like another thing that kind of led to that later moment. But yeah.
I'm so glad you made it that far because let me tell you, I took math in the eighth grade and that took me out. So I decided right then and there, I wanted to be a nurse because, I wanted to help the people, but I realized my calling was not to help people in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, the pressure is real in those STEM fields, and shout out to them.
Yes, shout out to them.
Yeah, but
So you're
sorry to interrupt, but I always say that to them, like healthcare providers, like y'all are really doing the real work, but they say, hey, music saves lives too. So
I love that. I think the work kind of goes hand in hand. Like the pandemic really, exposed that because when people were locked in their homes, they were looking, at the verses on TV. They were
mhm.
binge watching all of these shows. So it was kind of like the healthcare providers keeping people healthy, but also the arts kind of keeping people sane and afloat during that time.
Oh yeah, I actually just bought a book that talks exactly about the pandemic, and it is sitting. I think it's in my backpack. Um, I wish I could tell you more about it. Do you mind if I run to get it?
Yeah, go get it. I want to know. Okay, see, we are both scholars, we are both PhD students, and this is what we do. We read books, we intellectualize about these topics.
Could you repeat that?
I was just telling the people this is what we do. You know, we're scholars, we intellectualize things, we read things. Okay, like lockdown never happened, music and culture during COVID. Okay, tell us more.
So it kind of leans more into UK culture as far as I'm reading it, but it is UK Black culture, and it references a lot of great works like such as Paul Gilroy, and amongst others. And it does focus on Black music. So, but specifically during the pandemic and how it kind of kept us afloat and how culture became and transcended borders, basically because of the onlineness of everything.
That reminds me of like DJ D Nice. You know, he would go live and he would have these DJ sets, and people started to really get into it, making it like an alternative space where in the comments they would say, "Oh, you know, we're in the club," and you know, like they really made it a
Yeah,
place that people went to, even though it was just like a virtual space.
yeah, and I mean, this book definitely touches on artists like that. They list a few artists in the beginning, and I'm sure D Nice is amongst that. So I'm, as you can see, I'm only in the beginning, so been working.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the book recommendation.
Of course.
So your work blends jazz, hip hop, electronic music, and sampling. Was there a particular artist or musical experience that changed the way you thought about creating music?
Going back to being Black in the UK, I studied abroad my senior year, and I feel like I always bring this up, but this was kind of where I was applying to grad school. Like that, this was the mindset I was in. Is like, what am I going to be bringing to a field if all of these conversations are already happening? And I was thinking, like, what am I doing already? I'm a DJ. I'm a musician. Because of the pandemic, I sold my DJ equipment because I wanted to start doing more music gigs. And I realized that was a mistake when I was producing an album and I needed some DJ equipment to achieve a certain sound. And that's something I talked about in my uh, personal statement to get into the University of Virginia for a graduate school in music. And uh, yeah, that sort of that experience being in the UK, um, it kind of like there was a lot of music that was like remixed in certain fashions, like jungle music, D&B music, but also grime. Like I was being exposed to that type of music, like sort of Black identity in another English speaking place across the pond from the US. So it is like vastly different. But seeing that and seeing the way that sampling had influenced like entire genres made me like really lock in and say, okay, well, wait, I come from the US, like hip hop also has this connection. Like why and I've been making hip hop, but I haven't been using any samples. What's going on? Like why am I not why do I feel like my beats aren't hitting the standard that I hear on the radio? And it's because I'm not using these sampling approaches. So that's kind of what got me into this mode of thinking about how do we use actual audio as the instrument, and not just like the final product that we're trying to get to, the bounce or the export, but using that export and then repurposing it or using someone else's.
I love that. I mean, you took full advantage of that study abroad experience. And I think that happens a lot in music. Like, I feel like in America, we always have the recipe, like Black culture, we have the recipe for music. And then as trends, genres change, we kind of go somewhere else while, you know, another place might really sink their teeth into something that we've kind of, you know, oh, that was then, but this is now. So I
Yeah.
think that's amazing. You found, you know, that sampling or develop that love for sampling or knowing you needed to sample from being in a completely different place.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Your
agree.
latest Yes. So your latest album, Triple Consciousness, what inspired this project and what do you hope listeners take away from it?
So this was the first project where I really embraced sampling as part of a project and not necessarily just like a one-off thing that I might do in one song. Um, the first track starts with Steve Reich sample. And the track is literally called Sixth Reich because it samples Six Pianos by Steve Reich. And I thought it would be a funny name considering the current state of the world and the country that we live in. Um, so that that track kind of grapples with modern conversations of like what is music, what is sampled music, um, and what is seen as part of the canon that we have to study in academia. So part of the reason I'm here is because when I was studying music in college, it was music theory, and all we were talking about was classical. Um,
Mhm.
we hardly even touched jazz, and then when we did touch jazz, it was like Aaron Copland and George Gershwin, and like I'm like, what about what about everyone
The
else?
people who made it.
Right. And they made it a point to talk about how jazz was first recorded by white artists, despite it being made by black artists. But then we didn't talk about black artists. I think the most we ever talked about was like William Grant Still and Florence Price. And I was like, yeah. And then it wasn't until I got into UVA. I'm sorry for anyone who's hearing this conversation now and maybe didn't know this, but like it wasn't until I got into UVA when my professor was like, "Have you heard of Julius Eastman?" And I was like, "We didn't talk about him in any of the classes." He's like, "Yeah, like this guy's doing like really experimental stuff." It's like, he's like, "But this is the type of stuff you need to know before you get to UVA." And I'm like, "Well, why ain't nobody tell me?" It's because it wasn't being taught to us. So the reason I'm here is because advanced theory, we were introduced to Steve Reich, and I'm hearing minimalism. I'm hearing about minimalism, and I'm like, this sounds a lot. This sounds a lot like what is being done in hip hop. And despite it happening at a later period in time, the innovations like of sampling were brought to another level. And of course, we call it sampling, but like there is a precursor there in Steve Reich, and he acknowledges it in Paul Miller's works, in his compilations, but or DJ Spooky, whoever, yeah, but yeah, that was something I wanted to address, and also, I had been sampling like all of these like canonical, like academic 20th century composers because I want to familiarize myself with them in a way that makes sense to me. Like I don't care to read about them or even listen to their music with no further intention to really understand the matrix of the music other than sampling it. So, and that kind of brings me to my next point is like using sampling as a pedagogical tool is like, okay, if sampling technology exists and we can use it as a tool for listening, a tool for evaluating and analyzing music, why isn't it being done in music theory classes? Why isn't it being done in music history classes? Why aren't we playing with this music more intimately and getting our fingers on it and messing it up and rewinding it and looping it and cutting it up to the point where we know it so much that when we listen to the original, we're like, I know this because I looped this one section and mixed it with the later section and made something new with it.
Ross, so many good points. I mean, especially what you started in the beginning with talking about the music theory. Like, I went to school for jazz, and they had this rule where you had to like complete all three levels of your classical theory before you could take your jazz theory. You had to take like classical composition before you could take jazz composition. And it's like, why is there this hierarchy? Even as a jazz major, why was this hierarchy of like Western European classical music? when I wasn't even trying to study that.
Yeah. And I mean, not to toot Berkeley's horn, but the way they teach jazz is so different than the way that like a conservatory type of school would teach jazz. Because when I finally got jazz theory in college, my senior year, because they only offered jazz theory every other spring, which is like, and of course the one spring was like I was still trying to double major in something I didn't end up double majoring in. So like I was wasting my time. I could have taken it the first time around, and also COVID was my I think second semester or second semester. But yeah. Where was I going with that? When I finally came around to it, like we were learning about it in such a way that it necessitated the earlier theory that we had to learn. Whereas at Berkeley, they were introducing more advanced topics like 251 and like tritone substitution to somebody who might not have understood it. But like they were trying to get it through our heads early on and trying to talk about it in a way that made sense to the instruments that we were playing. Like we would go to music theory class with our instruments out, and they would be like, okay, you learn about this thing, now play it. Or I'm gonna play a backing track and you have to guess the key just by playing your instrument, but as soon as you figure it out, stop. Like that's real hands-on with the theory, as opposed to, so like this use of the instrument as part of education is already there, but there are places in academia that are not embracing that. And like I'm trying to go even further and be like, we have sampling technology. This is even more like economic. This is more optimized than bringing a saxophone into the class. So
Yeah, and I mean, things are changing so much. Students need more skills than just, writing a Bach invention. Like, you need audio technology skills, social media marketing, like all of these things that go into being an artist now. Academia is kind of behind the eight ball when it comes to including those things in the curriculum that actually, not actually benefit, but also benefit the students.
yeah, indeed. Yeah. And that's ultimately my goal, is to be able to come up with some sort of curriculum and have people be able to learn this way and be able to apply it in their own studies, independently of a course, when they're put in situations where they have to. So
Okay, I'm looking forward to the book, the raw height textbook of music sampling and all things.
not a textbook, not a textbook.
Okay, that goes against, the
Yeah,
everything we're talking about.
yeah.
Okay,
It'll
as
be
a
something though.
it'll be what? Say it again.
It'll be something though.
Okay, I'm looking for it. Okay, as both a scholar and artist, how do both parts of those identities influence each other in your creative process?
Scholar artist was something that I feel like I didn't really take on until more recently. Um, Kind of like applying to jobs where they're kind of like using that sort of language. Um, in the job application is like, oh, we prefer that like scholar artists like kind of took on this role. And I was like, I am kind of that. Like I'm doing all this writing and theorizing and philosophizing about music, and I am also out here like working gigs and playing, like I'm out here with the instruments, so, and as well as DJing. So the yeah, the artist scholar is something that I'm kind of like new to, just like ideologically, because that wasn't something that people kind of claimed in my undergraduate spaces, or even like before that. It was just, oh, music teacher, but of course the music teacher plays the instrument. So yeah, I think bringing music to the theorization of things, it's kind of like it feels sometimes like it's antithetical to the work, but like the actual like work of music. But at the same time, I am responding to experiences I had in music academia where I'm like, I want this to be taught right. So yeah, it's it's a it's a topic. That's a topic. It's the artist scholar.
So do you accept your role as artist scholar?
I mean, do I have a choice? Because I mean, you asked me the question, so like, I guess I am right. But I understand that that is something I do have to claim, and that is something that people are going to see me as because I'm in these spaces.
That is true. That's who you are now. Climate justice is a major theme throughout the album. So why was it important for you to center environmental issues in this body of work?
Because I feel like it should be centered in our day to day life. I think we should be always working toward uh, making the place we live as livable as possible, and working against that is definitely that we should not be doing that. So much so that I went and made a 10-track album and talked about all of this craziness going on and like what I would do about it if I had the power to. But you know, making music is all I have the power to do, and I think if that's the only thing I can do, I might as well do it in a way that is productive.
Yeah, and I think music, if someone wasn't into climate justice, but they heard your music, they're interested in the music first, but then the lyrics make them think more, and then, organically they kind of find their way to climate justice versus someone kind of automatically saying, "Oh, no, I'm not interested in that." So I think music it's just a great way to kind of open conversations around topics that people wouldn't typically want to discuss or feel like they need to discuss.
Yeah, definitely. And even something as simple as like a title. We talk about not but judging books by their title or songs by their titles, but it happens. So why not make something that is provoking? Like more recently I dropped a song called Super El Nino, and then the BPM, I forget the BPM, I think it's 112. But it's just a house song, instrumental, no words. But I'm talking about Super El Nino, which is like in the news every day, and it's talking about how this year is supposed to be unprecedentedly hot and crops are supposed to fail at an unprecedented rate. Like this is something that affects the entire world. And at the same time, we have all these wars going on and explosions and like things contributing to the atmosphere and to the climate change that we're already experiencing. Um, why not make the thing that we're expecting to be a devastating blow to the entire world's ecosystems, like as the song title, to kind of put it in everybody's face with something that might sound good.
It's a great strategy.
Yeah.
So, in this album, there's field recordings and other unique sonic elements. Was there anything that kind of surprised you about the process of creating the album?
So using field recordings, that's something I kind of picked up while being at University of Virginia, uh, being in Matthew Bertner's classes, um, kind of really put me onto that. But thinking about ways I could use it similar to samples that we might think of just more musically, like with chord progressions and percussion. Like how might I use water, just a steady flow of water? And I feel like that was something that was a surprise to me. Is like, how is there a way to do it that isn't like tacky? And I felt like a lot of the approaches that I did take were tacky, and that's why a lot of them didn't make the album. But A lot of sounds did make it to the album. And I hope to continue that process and like kind of go like make that a lifelong journey. But I have to be patient with it. That's something that surprised me, is the being patient with this incorporation of new approaches.
Okay. So, as someone, I think through your work you're doing this, someone who's inspiring future generations through both your scholarship and your music, what advice would you give to a young artist?
I would say take the hard road, because I mean, I already talked about like my experiences with STEM and how like what I perceived as failures or like major turning points in my life ended up being the thing that put me on the path of actually getting to do what I wanted to do, was being an artist who gets to do these things anyway. I'm a musician who deals with music technology, and more than often I'm using a lot of these math formulas that people told me they would never use ever again. But I'm out here using trigonometry more than anybody would think. Max MSP, there's a lot of capabilities on there, and musical ones at that. So I get to still be the STEMmy I always wanted to be while being a music geared STEM person, and also getting to speak up against the things I might have been doing if I had stuck to just STEM. Like, who knows, I might have got a job at whatever that place is called, Lockheed Martin.
That's great advice. Okay, take the hard road, the road less traveled. I love that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Ra, I have some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
What's one album everyone should listen to?
Freetown Sound by Blood Orange.
Mm, okay, I like it.
I was
You're
a
rapid for real.
I was a fan before everyone else. He's starting to blow up now. I'm not starting to. He's been blown up, but like I'm starting to hear him in the grocery store. So now I know it's starting to become pop.
You did it. You inspired it. Okay, what is your favorite thing to splurge on?
Food was the immediate answer, but musical instruments, honestly. I just bought
Spoken
a
like a true musician.
brand new fully weighted keyboard, so I'm just Charlottesville. Let me know if you need a jazz pianist. I DJ and play jazz piano at the same time. So
Okay. Hit Raw up if you need a DJ, a pianist, a saxophonist, all the things.
yes, at the same time.
Yes. Okay. Your dream collaboration.
Michael Jackson.
Mm. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite part of the creative process? Composing, producing, or performing?
You said producing or composing?
Yeah, composing, producing, or performing.
The thing is, composing and producing are a lot of the same for me, especially when I'm sampling. Like, it is,
Okay.
yeah, I would say some mixture of that. I love live performance, but I haven't done it enough, so I can't say I love it as much as composing and performing. Shout out
Okay.
COVID.
Okay, so if a audience member was being introduced to your music for the first time, what song should they check out?
No Say from the newest album, Triple Consciousness, or Out of Touch from In the Present.
Okay, we're gonna play that a little later. But I know you got your keyboard over there. What can you give our listeners? What can you give our listeners?
First, let me turn this down because I'm pretty sure it's really loud. I can play a little bit of jazz. I mean,
Yeah, give us a little something. Give us a little something.
I'll just improvise a little bit.
Okay.
hear this?
Yeah.
My headphone wire is on the keys, so I'm messing up a little.
Beautiful, 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 amazing.
Yeah, maybe I should have
Yeah.
put this up here. Now I could do a little faster.
Oh no, it was great. It was great. Thank you. So everybody, y'all heard him. He displayed the talent. So if you want to book Raw, go ahead and do that. Okay, Raw. So what is up next for you?
So I've just entered my research period, I guess. So I have a few years I can use to write my dissertation. So that is probably something I'm gonna lock into for a while, because I want to get that done, and I don't want to be a procrastinator like I have been for the rest of my life. But who knows what will happen? But yeah, the things that come with research, I I can't even imagine. Research is so dynamic and multiplexical that I just um yeah, anything that comes with doing research for the dissertation or in general, which can bring me almost anywhere.
Yeah, especially since I feel like your research is done. Like you have so much like raw data by making this album and the things you kind of naturally care about. So I think, you already got your framework for your research already right there.
Oh, I definitely agree. I think a lot of the research I'm onto now is more so like on the writing and reading side of things, making sure I know where I am in the field, who I'm in conversation with already, just inherently through the conversation I'm talking about. Um, but also what kind of ideas can be drawn in with these conversations. Like, well, who can I bring into conversation um, that might have not been in conversation before this sort of research. So that's kind of what I'm onto. And surprisingly enough, reading and writing, it gets you places, folks. It's awesome. Like, y'all should do it.
Yeah, about that. Yep. Okay, Rob, before we get out of here, can you tell our listeners where they can keep up with you and all the wonderful things you're doing?
So my social media is AVRAHGE. That's Avraj, AVRAHGE. That's on most platforms. Pretty much all of them actually. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, not really on Facebook, but I might have something. I'm not sure. And I'm also on YouTube. My alias is Ra the Fifth, so RAH and then a Roman numeral 5. So that's just Ra V. Some people should just say it's easier to say. That's on most streaming platforms. I took all my music off of Spotify for political reasons, and but I am everywhere else. So you can check me out just about everywhere else. I usually will talk about SoundCloud or Tidal or Bandcamp, but I am on Apple Music,
Okay.
etc.
Okay, so everyone, we can check out Ra and all the great things he's doing. Thank you so much for being here, Ra.
Of course, thank you for having me. Like I'm honored to be here. I appreciate it. This is
No,
this
you
is
were great.
Charlottesville. This is Charlottesville made it. So
I appreciate your kind words.
of course.